And now, aviation weather around Alaska. Hi, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan, bringing you your Alaska aviation weather coming up here as we go through the weekend. And by Saturday early morning, we do anticipate IFR conditions along the Arctic coast, including areas of the North Slope, all the way down through the Chukchi Sea along much of the Seward Peninsula coastline into the YK deltas, including Kuskokwim Bay, much of the Bering Sea as an area of low pressure will be sitting and spinning out here over the central Bering. Not an especially deep or strong low, but there is a weakening frontal system that's pushed up toward the southwest coast that will allow for a southerly flow of moisture to continue up along areas of the southwest and western coastline. Also, that flow from the southeast and south is going to create IFR conditions along especially the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula. The southern eastern interior enjoying VFR conditions thanks to still a holding ridge of high pressure, though the big ridge of high pressure that was in place this previous week over this region is breaking down, kind of working its way southeastward and collapsing, but will still have big influence over western northwest Canada and lagging into areas of the Panhandle and southeast for a little while longer. Again, on Saturday, because of the southeast to southerly flow on the periphery or backside of this big ridge of high pressure, that's a moist flow coming up across the North Pacific and Bering, so the west coast, southwest, on up into the Chukchi Sea. We'll see IFR conditions extensive there continue through Saturday afternoon. And again, Sunday, some of that moisture will try to push a little farther inland into perhaps here the southwestern side of the Brooks Range. And also we're going to see a secondary low, not a strong low, come back up toward the central Alaska Peninsula, just southwest of Kodiak Island. And that's going to bring more moisture eastward and northeastward as we come into later in the weekend, especially later Sunday and in early Monday. So we see IFR conditions expanding across Cook Inlet on up toward Prince William Sound, the Western Gulf. And then by Sunday afternoon, pretty widespread IFR conditions across the Gulf and starting to show up into the Copper River Basin, St. Elias, Wrangell Mountains, and then back up toward parts of the Alaska Range. And as we look further north and west, a rather extensive IFR from areas of the Arctic coast, western half of the North Slope, down through the lower Chukchi Sea and Bering Strait, and still, again, along the southwestern coast. So past conditions on Saturday, they're in through the central Brooks Range, Anatuvik Pass, MVFR, as will be Adigan Pass. And then further south and west, the west arm of the Alaska Range, looking at VFR early Saturday, giving way to MVFR conditions at Lake Clark and Merrill. And further, as we come up further north, Rainy Pass, VFR conditions becoming MVFR by Saturday afternoon. And Windy Pass generally should be able to hold on to VFR conditions a little longer there during the day on Saturday, as will areas of the eastern Alaska Range, Isabel Pass, eastward through Mentasta Pass, VFR. And in the Copper River Basin, still VFR conditions are anticipated, but we do anticipate that moisture to be streaming a little further northeastward by Sunday, so expect these conditions to be heading toward MVFR or even IFR in some cases. Now, Portage Pass will start out VFR giving way to MVFR, and the greatest potential lowest ceilings and in that increase of moisture coming there, MVFR to IFR along the eastern entrance and up into Prince William Sound. And then finally, Chilkoot and White in the northern Panhandle will still manage to hold on to VFR conditions during the day on Saturday, though I do expect it to be trending downward by the time we get into Sunday and later Sunday. Freezing levels at the surface are generally running along the west coast, cutting through the Seward Peninsula, in through the southwest interior, and then along areas just inland of the Gulf Coast and in through the inner channels of the Panhandle for Saturday morning. And notice the bump up in freezing level heights in response to the warmer ridge of high pressure that's, again, retreating, breaking down toward the southeast, so it's not as pronounced as it was this past week over this region. Really seeing those freezing levels aloft come way down, 2,000 feet down here along the Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound. Still holding up around 10,000 feet just southwest of the Panhandle area and west of Haida Gwaii, down into the North Pacific. And we see a little bump here in the freezing levels aloft, upwards to 6,000 feet all the way north to St. Lawrence Island. Again, because of that southeast to south flow in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, bringing in that warmer air aloft, which is fanning thicker cloud cover and areas of precipitation, generally a light mix of precipitation possible across areas of the southwest from the YK Delta on up into the lower middle Yukon Valley, and then pulling back toward the Bering Strait. Greatest threat for some moderate icing would be along areas down here in toward the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, with the southeast flow coming in, going upward along the mountains and higher terrain. Also areas of Kuskokwim Bay, Toland Strait, lower Yukon Delta, between Nome and St. Lawrence out over the North Bering, and along the eastern Russia coast into the Gulf of Anadyr. We find the free icing potential higher up, above 6,000 feet here, Chukchi Sea in eastern Russia, above 8,000 feet around St. Lawrence and the Yukon Delta, and above 10,000 feet, especially from Kuskokwim Bay southward into the Alaska Peninsula, simply because the air is a bit warmer further south. Upper level jet stream winds, we have the ridge of high pressure, though not as pronounced as the past week. So we have this anticyclonic flow coming up south to then northwest across central Canada as high as 110 knots. Here's the low circulation over the central Bering Sea and as we bring it down, you can see some stronger winds at 700 millibars, or roughly 9,000 feet along the southwest coast, coming up into Kuskokwim Bay, Bethel area. South winds upwards of 45 to 55 knots there, and a broad 40-45 knot flow across the eastern Bering up to the Bering Strait. And then also out here, as the secondary low kind of pulls back toward the west, we see some stronger belts of winds, 35-45 knots, pushing up into the Gulf. And at 3,000 feet, this says more as far as where likely turbulence will be. We do have winds at 3,000 feet that are on the order of 40 to locally as high as 55, 60 knots, especially around some of the higher terrain here toward the lower end of the Alaska range and back out here toward the southwest coast, Bristol Bay and up to Kuskokwim Bay. Now, greatest threat for moderate turbulence, and I wouldn't even rule out some pockets of isolated severe turbulence here within the northern half of the Alaska range and up here through the southwest interior as you get up into some of the higher terrain just in from Bristol Bay. We're looking at this at least moderate turbulence surface to 4,000 or 5,000 feet here across the southwest, and then it kind of fans out a bit here as we get toward south side of St. Lawrence Island, around Nome on the southwest side of the Seward Peninsula, and also up toward Point Hope, Point Lay, surface to 3,000 feet. There could be some moderate turbulence as well.